What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG TCG video. Today, guys, we are going to be going over the new DD support that is set to release in Battles of Chaos. And if I'm going to be honest with you guys, was not expecting DDDs to get support in this set, but am I mad about it? Absolutely not. I love the DDD archetype, and I'm very excited to be discussing these new cards with you guys. So, without further ado, let's not waste any more time, and let's jump right into it. So, as per usual with these card game videos, I'll go over the monsters first, then the extra deck monsters, and end it off with the spells and traps. And we're going to be starting off with DD Griffin, a level 4 Dark Fiend Pendulum Effect monster with 1200 attack and defense with a pendulum scale of 1. And its pendulum effect reach, which I'll just have separately on the screen because there is a lot when it comes to the two monsters we're going to be going over in this video. And this is generally what I'm going to do with pendulum monsters in these Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG TCG videos. I'll go over the pendulum effect first, and then I'll go over the monster effect right after it. So its pendulum effect is you can only use the pendulum effect of this card's name once per turn. You can target one fiend monster you control. It gains 500 attack for each dark contract spell and trap with different names you control and in your graveyard until the end of the turn, then destroy this card. So essentially all this pendulum effect does is it allows you to get a pretty beefy monster onto the field by making it gain a whole bunch of attack points thanks to having control of dark contract cards not only on the field but also in your graveyard, and then it destroys itself, which at first might seem it's a pretty bad effect, especially since, you know, you're losing one of your scales, but that could potentially set up for you to maybe get a better pendulum scale going, which a pendulum scale of 1 is already good enough, but maybe you're trying to go with a pendulum effect from another monster, but since your zones would be filled up at that point, maybe that kind of ruins some of your plays. So having it have an effect where it destroys itself is not really that bad. Also, it is then sent to the extra deck so that you can pendulum summon it later on, which now we're going to get into the monster effect for this card. And its monster effect reads, you can only use the first, second, and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. The first effect is, if you control a DD monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. Its second effect is, if this card is pendulum summoned, you can discard one DD or dark contract card, draw one card. And its third effect is, if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can add one DD card from your deck to your hand, except DD Griffin. So each of the three effects are actually pretty interesting in their own regard. So the first one allows you to special summon this card if you control a DD, which is always nice to be able to do that. That way you can go into your Xyz, Synchro, or Fusion plays, or whatever you're trying to do. The second one, if it's pendulum summon, you can discard a DD or dark contract card to draw a card. So you can dump something, like you can discard, like your DD slime to the graveyard, and you get to draw one card, which is nice because that can set up for your fusion plays later on in the duel. Or if you already have another DD monster in the graveyard, you can immediately go into a fusion summon, which is always nice. And then the third effect, allowing you to add a DD card from your deck to your hand by special summoning this from the graveyard, is honestly not that bad at all. I think that's a really good effect in its own regard. So all three of these effects are honestly pretty good in their own rights. Being able to special summon this card pretty easily is nice. Being able to potentially get one, like a slime, into your graveyard to further your plays and get an additional draw of its pendulum summoned is nice. And then being able to get a DD card from deck to your hand by special summoning this card from the graveyard are all just three good effects on this card. I really do like this card, and I think this is definitely going to be probably a good staple in a DD deck. I think this is actually a pretty strong card for the new DDD support. But that's going to be it for the main deck monsters, and we're going to jump straight into the extra deck monsters, or I should say extra monster, as we only have one new monster for the DDD extra deck, and that is in the form of an Xyz Pendulum monster, and that is DDD Amnesty King Doom Makina, a rank 10 Dark Fiend Xyz Pendulum effect monster with 3000 attack and defense. It's with a pendulum scale of 10, so it's actually a pretty high scale pendulum monster, which is nice to see. Its pendulum effect is you can only use this card's name's pendulum effect once per turn. The first effect is if you have a card in your other pendulum zone, you can target one pendulum monster you control or in your graveyard, special summon the card in your other pendulum zone, and if you do, place that target in your pendulum zone. So it essentially allows you to be able to give back one of your scales in order to go into your pendulum summoning plays. So honestly, that pendulum effect is honestly not that bad at all, but going into its monster effects, oh boy, we have a lot to read in regards to its monster effect. So for its monster effect, the requirement to summon this card is 2 level 10 Fiend monsters, and its effect is you can also exceed summon this card by using a DDD monster you control as material, transfer its materials to this card, obviously if you use an Xyz monster. So really easy actually to get out into the field, which doesn't seem like it would be being a rank 10 monster, so that's actually pretty nice. And its 3 effects are, with the first one being you can only control one DDD Amnesty King Doom Makina in the monster zone, which is fine, it's not really that big of a deal. The second effect is once per chain, when your opponent activates a monster card's effect on the field, quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card or destroy 1 dark contract card you control, and if you do, attach that opponent's card to this card as material. And the third effect is once per turn during your standby phase, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. Okay, so if you needed another scale for your pendulum summons, this could actually be a good target for one of your pendulum zones, since it's a scale 10, which is pretty nice in my opinion. But its second effect is what we're really going to look at, because this is what it's actually going to do in regards to your opponent. The other two is just how you would normally set up your board, with the first one locking you only be able to summon one of this, and then the other one so that you can perform pendulum summons. But the second effect, allowing yourself to detach 2 materials or destroy a dark contract card to take an opponent's monster and make it become an Xyz material, is really good. That's actually a very powerful effect, especially since there is another option you could do by destroying the dark contract card, because obviously with dark contract cards, if you're not able to get rid of them by your standby phase, you take 1,000 points of damage, and that could really put you down on the clock if you're not able to deal with that. So this is essentially a way to get rid of one of your dark contract cards that might not be useful at that point right now. That way you're not taking 1,000 points of damage, which is nice. The only thing I will say when it comes to this card that I wish it did was allow you to be able to negate the effect, because all it does is it attaches the card as material. It doesn't actually negate the effect. That would have been nice if this card had it, but nope, we don't always get what we want. So although I still think it's a pretty good card, that's the only downside I would say when it comes to this card, is that it doesn't have that protection from being able to negate the monster's effect. But I don't think it's going to really be that big of a deal, because if it's like an effect of destroying a monster on the field and they target this monster, they're essentially going to be destroying that monster as well, because you're going to be attaching it to this monster, and then it's going to get destroyed because of that. So honestly, it's not really that bad of a downside in my opinion. So overall, I think this is actually a pretty strong monster for the DDD archetype. But with that being said, that's going to be it for the extra deck monsters, and we're going to jump into the spells and traps. So for the spells and traps, the first card we're going to be going over is Patented Dark Contract Documents, a field spell card with the effect of you can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. The first effect is if your opponent special summons a monsters of the same type, Fusion Synchro Xyz Link, as a DD monster you control, you can inflict 1,000 damage to them. Also, they cannot special summon monsters of the same type as those summoned monsters for the rest of the turn while this card is face up on the field. And the second effect is if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 DD monster from your graveyard or face up extra deck to your hand. So the first effect of this card is insane. So if you have a Link monster onto the field, your opponent can essentially only Link summon once, and that's it. If you have an Xyz monster on the field, your opponent can only Xyz summon once. That is a really strong effect. So if your opponent wants to Link climb, tough shit. They're not going to be able to do it. They cannot link climb with this card. If you want to go into a play where you go into Xyz monster and then overlay into Zeus, tough break. You're not going to be allowed to do that. If you want to, I guess you can synchro climb as well as a thing. If you want to go into like a smaller synchro monster to go into another synchro monster, you're out of luck. You can't do that. That's a very powerful card. And then if this card is destroyed, you can get back a DD card from your graveyard or extra deck to your hand. That is a really powerful card, in my opinion, of course, to make it to where your opponent is limited in their extra deck, and you get a resource back if this card is destroyed. This card is just good, in my opinion. I really do think this is a pretty powerful card for the DDD archetype. In my opinion, of course, but this is going to lead to the final card for this video, which is DDD Head Hurt. A normal trap with the effect of you can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. If you control a DDD monster, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase of the next turn, but its effects are negated, it cannot declare an attack. Also, if it's special summoned from the extra deck, it's treated as a DDD monster. Okay, so that's actually a really strong effect. It is, because of the sole reason that you can make it into a DDD monster. Because at first it might seem, okay, being able to take control of it, you know, you can't declare an attack with the card, you can't use its effects, you can't use any of the benefits of the card, other than maybe you can go into a link play or something like that, or I guess you can go into some sort of Xyz play depending on what their level is, and then go from plays there, I guess. But because of the new Xyz monster we got from this set, you can use this card, take control of one of your opponent's monsters, as long as from the extra deck, which more than likely that's what you're going to be choosing, because it's Yu-Gi-Oh! 2021. If you're not using extra deck monsters, unless it's specifically the deck you're playing, like Monarchs or something like that, I don't know what you're doing. But you can take control of one of their extra deck monsters, it becomes a DDD monster, then you can use that monster to go into that new Xyz monster. That is really powerful. That's a very strong card. So you get to take one of their cards to use for your Xyz plays, your link plays, all that stuff. The whole thing of not being able to use its effects or declare an attack, that's not really that big of a deal. It isn't. This card is actually really powerful when you really think about it. Holy crap. Especially how easy it makes it to where you can go in that. Yeah, you have to control a DDD monster, but honestly, that's not going to really be that hard either. So this is honestly another very strong card for the DDD archetype. But with that being said, that's going to be it for the new DDD support. General thoughts on the new DDD support. Wow, I think this is honestly some really good support for the DDD archetype. Like, every card that I've went over in this video, I thought were pretty strong. I think each one of these cards could be put into a DDD deck. Griffin is good just for being able to special summon, maybe set up for your slime plays to go into your fusions, all that stuff, and even getting back from the graveyard to be able to do some stuff with that as well is great. The Xyz monster is really good, being able to take your opponent's monster to make it become an Xyz material is great. The field spell limiting your opponent for what they can do in the extra deck, insane. And then Head Hurt, being able to essentially take control of a monster to go into that Xyz monster, or just anything in general. That's just insane. This support is really good for the DDD archetype, which I love. I love the DDD archetype. It's such a cool deck. I love all the monsters, with Kali Yoga being probably my favorite of the DDD monsters. It looks so freaking sick. And I even like, this might be a weird one, DDD High King Gust Alexander, or some name like that. I'm pretty bad when it comes to the DDD names and remembering them, so bear with me. But I do love the DDD archetype, and to see them get support like this just makes me happy. And for all you DDD fans out there, rejoice, because this is some pretty nice support for the DDD archetype. But with that being said, that's going to be it for this OCG TCG video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the new DDD support down below. Did you think the support was good? Did you think the support was just alright? Or do you not think the support was good at all for the DDD archetype? And let me just know your guys' thoughts on just DDDs getting support in general, because if I'm going to be honest, was not expecting them to get support at all. But if I'm mad about it, absolutely not. I love the DDD archetype, and I'm very glad that they got support in this set. But with that being said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.